Hello, welcome to another Adventures in Bing Chat video. So one thing I'm being mindful of is that my passion for experimenting with prompts in Bing Chat is obviously taking over the channel. And I don't find it that difficult to produce 7 videos a week. And that was always the aim as an experiment to basically do 7 videos a week. However, I was already doing 7 videos a week before I got interested in prompts in Bing Chat, or just prompts in GPTs generally. And as a consequence, it's got to the point where I'm actually doing, or I've got videos that are being scheduled, twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. So that's something I want to dial back, because I don't want to astroturf the whole channel with this prompting. And I do want to have, obviously the Magic the Gathering videos coming out, the things that spark joy videos, those sort of things. So what I thought I'd do is try and get down to just having 1 video on prompting a week and bring everything together in that 1 video. So going forward, I'm going to do these videos that are going to be 5 prompts to try and possible responses and advances, and that's how I'm going to deal with it going forward. So I'll collect up prompt ideas during the week, pick the best 5, do a video about it, and then just chat about it in the video. So you can see here I've got duplicate tabs opened up, and first of all what we're going to try is this one, which I thought was quite interesting. So please create a thought for the day, a paragraph in length, on a random topic that might inspire someone in their flourishing. And we'll do that first, and then we'll try a couple of variants to help you think about this if you're into sort of, designing your own prompts, tweaking stuff. Now, this is good if it's going to just do this. I'll show you a variant, but I won't run it. So sometimes what you'll find happens is you get multiple paragraphs. It's happened to me once. So one way you can deal with this, just to show you on screen, although I won't run it, is to do this. Please create a single thought for the day of a paragraph in length, just in case you notice that starts happening. Another thing you can do, and again, this is a suggestion, but I'm not going to run it. And obviously I would wipe this between running these if I was testing these, because I obviously test different variations of these. Would be something like this. So using the BBC's thought for the day as an exemplar, please create a single thought for the day of a paragraph in length on a random topic that might inspire someone in their flourishing. And what that does is it locks down the style a little bit to this particular, in this case it's a thing the BBC put out every day on the radio. I think it's on Radio 4, and it's normally some sort of it's always around, has a sort of religious approach to it. So if you're more making your thoughts for the day in a certain domain, then that's why you can do it. The other thing you can do is, before you run these, if you want to just check that it knows what you're talking about, you can actually say, do you know about BBC thought for the day, and do that as a preparation, if you like, an entry question, an entry prompt before you then use it. But I found for this one, it's pretty well known, I didn't need to do that. The other way you can tell is when you experiment with these, if you look at what searches it's doing before it answers, that's a quite good indicator of what might be going on. So moving on to the next one, this is another of one of my favourite things to think about. So list 10 music albums that capture the music zeitgeist in the UK of 1989. Now obviously what you can do here is change the year and change the region. And something else we'll be talking about at the end with some of the other examples is you can also say pick a random country or region and pick a random year from the following dates and do that. So you can see here, and I've run this in enough times to see what it might be doing. So yeah, Fine Young Cannibals, Disintegration by the Cure, Stone Roses. I picked 89 for a reason, because it was a very interesting year musically in the UK, just because of rave culture and Manchester scene and dance music and other stuff as well coming in from the US. We've got Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys mentioned, but also what was in the charts, a lot of it was what would be considered to be almost like counterculture, and that's where the next variation of this question comes in, and how you choose to run this. So it's going to be doing 10 albums. Obviously you can pick to do 5. I wanted a bit of a broader range, and it also you notice with all of these I've picked to use the more creative conversational style. So one thing I could do is wipe it before I ask the next question, but you could argue that the two interact with one another. So sometimes that's why it's a good excuse to not mind wipe. So do it as a follow-on rather than a mind wipe. So list 10 music albums that capture the musical counterculture in the UK of 1989. So let's see what happens. Thinking about it. Now, of course, because like I said, a lot of what we considered to be counterculture elements were in the charts, it might mention them again, but I'm hoping it will say, oh, I did mention this in the previous list, but this is also considered to be counterculture. So far, I don't think we've got anything that's been mentioned already. Oh, Stone Roses. Yeah, also mentioned in the previous answer. So that's good, you're getting that. And like I said, it's really an option to either do a mind wipe between the two questions or do them as a follow-on. Or even ask the counterculture one first and then ask the music zeitgeist and see what happens. The mind is a terrible thing to taste. One other thing, you would obviously need to double check these and make sure they're all albums that came out in 1989. Yeah, mentioned in the previous answer. So it's good it's highlighted those ones. And sometimes it might also say, oh, this band is not a UK band. And again, you can reword that to maybe emphasise that you want UK bands only, or those sort of things. So next one, and I found this is probably how I tend to use Bing for helping with coding, or how I think I'd use it, which is sometimes I have a mental block where I just can't remember the function or a method off the top of my head and have to look it up, or I want to do something and I know there's probably a method or a function for it. So one thing to do is just say, for instance, I wanted something the other day to produce a random number between 1970 and 2023. So I just put in, how do you produce a random number between 1970 and 2023, inclusively in Python. So we do that. And then that got me thinking about a good follow-on question to ask. So I'm expecting it to just basically do an import for the particular library, and then a single line, which is probably a print statement, and then it's got the random function, whatever that is. So randint, yeah, inside of that, there we go. So this is the key parts here. So you know me, I have this interest in comparative programming. So not surprisingly, a good follow-on question for me, because I'm just curious, is to pick 10 other programming languages that Bing can produce code for and do the same request. Now, of course, you could combine that as a single prompt. And I'll show you what that prompt might look like. And in that prompt, also how you might get it to maybe provide a better explanation for this. So you can see all of these. And again, I'd want to look this up when I'm using it here and just double check. So it's picking things like Java, JavaScript, Ruby, PHP, some things I'm more familiar with than others. I mean, Ruby, I definitely have to double check. And again, you could just run it because the way this is structured to in the appropriate interpreter or compiler. There's a Swift one there. There's an R one. Kotlin. And you could even ask a follow-up question that says something like, pick another set of programming languages that you can produce code for. I always do that you can produce code for. Might not need it, but it's handy. So I'm going to mind wipe here. Mind wipe. And this is a good aggregate question that combines some of those aspects. So how do you produce a random number between 1970 and 2023, inclusively in Python? Pick 5 other programming languages you can produce code for and do the same request. Provide explanations for any functions or method used. And here what it will do is it will explain a little bit better. So same first bit. But hopefully here it's going to do a number of different things. It might just introduce comments on there. But also you can see here, we're getting a little bit more, well, I didn't keep the original because I wanted to wipe it, but I think you saw it. But here we're getting more of an explanation about what arguments it takes. And the other useful thing is the inclusivity bit, like how is that handled? I've seen it before give a couple of solutions for Python and mention that another way of doing it, you do need to so the first value might be inclusive and the second value might be exclusive, so you might need to go up to 2024, that sort of thing. So we got Ruby, PHP, JavaScript, C#. I only said 5 this time just to keep the answer a bit shorter. Moving on, so this one, can you create a 500-word article based on the title on memory? So I was sort of inspired from older philosophy books or essayists that were also philosophers that often had collections of their writings, and it would be on memory or on happiness. So that's where this came from. And I've gone over to using the term article now, because I've had a few, failings as a result of guardrails that have been put in place to maybe dissuade this to being used for writing essays on tests and for homework and stuff like that. But one other useful thing, particularly if it is genuinely going to be an article, let's mind wipe again, is maybe this variant. So, can you write a 500-word article based on the title on memory? We'll keep it the same. Also please provide a 1-sentence summary for the article and 5 bulleted points. Now, one fun thing to do with this is change this up a little bit. Try it with different variants and see how much its bullet point selection actually affects what it chooses to write about, to see whether it's trying to get some alignment between the bullet points and the actual article, and how it does that. Obviously that's what you want it to do, but whether that's a thing. And of course another variation is to ask it to select the title, a short title at random. So you can see there's our bulleted list. Sorry, there's our bulleted list, there's our summary, there's our article. And then the fifth one is list and explain 5 ideas I could discover through studying Geoffrey Hinton's work. So again, you can use this, you can substitute the person's name here with somebody else, and you can also get clever if you're just interested in exploring a particular century. I read a really interesting book a couple of years ago which went through the whole of the 20th century and ran through all the different ideas in the 20th century which have influenced society, countries, whatever, thinking, ideas, going forward. So, for example, some variations you can try, and I'm not going to run all of these, are things like this. Also, what I'll do is in the description I'll include all these prompts. So pick a random writer on AI from the 21st century and list and explain 5 ideas I could discover through studying their work. Instead of using the term writer, because the interesting thing there is you sometimes get science fiction writers, which is good if you want to go down that route, because science fiction often informs a lot of our ideas about AI. But one variant is to try this, so a random AI expert. You can also go back to earlier centuries, so you can do 20th century. You can do the same thing with something like, say, philosophy or anything really. You could do it with a playwright or any writer. So pick a random writer on philosophy from a random century. So here again I've made 2 things random. And then finally I could do maybe specifically, rather than a writer on philosophy, although that is probably more likely to pick a philosopher, is to choose a question like this, which is pick a random philosopher from a random century. So rather than say a random writer on philosophy, and again I can run that. So finally, just to finish off, it's not so much a sixth prompt, but just an idea where you can riff around these and do this thing where you're actually getting Bing or any chatbot that's built on this sort of technology to act as a generator for the stuff you did earlier. So you don't have to keep, rewriting stuff. You can just get it to answer questions based around it being a generator, or produce content based around it being a generator for that specific thing. So, for example, if you take the thought for the day thing, you can say, I want you to act as a generator for a thought for the day of a paragraph in length on a random topic that might inspire someone in their flourishing. Please respond with a requested output for every topic I submit in the prompt. The first topic is flourishing. And so you can do this and encapsulate, so you can make this bit different and then keep the outer ones the same. So I want you to act as a generator for the following task, whatever that might be. Generated to write a 500-word article based on a random topic or a topic I supply. Or here, let me try that. Actually, that would be more correct, wouldn't it? On a topic that might inspire someone. So let's do that rather than a random topic. Makes more sense, doesn't it? And all the examples I've given so far can be encapsulated in this form, if you like. So it's starting off with flourishing. Now, what it should do is also start offering possible inputs, which then gives you an idea about the format you might want to do that in. So there you go. The next topic is gratitude, or you could type in anything. The next topic is life. And it should just now act as a thought of the day generator for life, and so on until you run out of prompts. So again, something to just try out here, that idea of encapsulating the prompt in this ability to act as a generator for prompts like whatever it is you want. Right, your function as a programming language, those sort of things. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next video.